welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the wildest geopolitical journeys in human history. We're going to trace the timeline of America, from a largely undiscovered landmass way across the ocean to the world's oldest democracy, and ultimately, to the biggest superpower on the globe. We're talking specific strategic decisions, devastating conflicts, and honestly, a whole lot of sheer geographical luck that took a continent of colonies and transformed it into the modern United States we know today. Here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, discovery and colonization. 2, independence and revolution. 3, expansion and civil war. 4, the rise of the superpower. And finally, number 5, current global challenges. Okay, let's dive right into this chronologically. Section 1, discovery and colonization, the accidental find. To really understand America's beginnings, we actually have to rewind and start way across the Atlantic, over in Europe. Specifically with Prince Henry of Portugal, the guy they called the Navigator. He was basically obsessed with exploring uncharted waters, going as far as setting up a school of navigation just to build ships that could handle brutal ocean storms. Now, he passed away in 1460, but that spark he lit, it spread like wildfire. Fast forward to 1492. You have a sailor named Christopher Columbus, who successfully pitches the King and Queen of Spain to fund a western sea route to India. He sets sail, but instead of hitting India as he intended, he accidentally stumbles onto a completely new landmass. By the 1700s, that massive accident kicked off a sweeping era of European colonial expansion. Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer historical irony of that whole thing. Because Columbus was so incredibly convinced he had actually hit an island in India, when he met the indigenous people living there, he just went ahead and called them Indians. Noting their appearance, he specifically coined the term Red Indians. It's wild to think about, but that one colossal geographical error literally permanently impacted how the native inhabitants of the Americas were named and classified throughout history. So, word gets out about this newly discovered land, and suddenly, it's a massive race. Spain, since they funded Columbus, quickly claims early sections. France scoops up huge chunks of what is today Canada. Meanwhile, Britain establishes these incredibly vast, powerful colonies right along the eastern coast. But the real story here isn't just about the land grab, it's about the people moving there. A lot of these early settlers weren't conquerors, they were outcasts, actively fleeing persecution back in Europe. They crossed the ocean because they wanted to build a new, egalitarian society where everyone could be equal. That was a total 180 from the rigid, oppressive monarchies they'd left behind. Section 2, independence and revolution, breaking away. Naturally, that deep desire for a new, equal society started to seriously clash with the reality of being ruled by a king an ocean away. And ironically enough, the seeds of the American Revolution were planted by a British victory. Britain fought the 7 Years' War against France and won, effectively pushing French influence out of the region. But here's the catch: wars are astronomically expensive. To put the bill, Britain started slapping incredibly heavy taxes and oppressive trade restrictions on their American colonies. They demanded all trade go through Britain. Talk about a plan completely backfiring. Instead of cementing their control, these harsh economic policies just completely united the previously divided colonies in shared anger and open rebellion. From there, the escalation was incredibly rapid. By 1765, the revolution was officially on. By 1776, they're demanding full independence. And they didn't fight this massive war alone either. France actually stepped in to help the Americans fight against their old British rivals. This vital support culminated in 1781, when British General Cornwallis was forced to surrender at Yorktown. Finally, in 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the war. Against all the odds, the colonies had won. Okay, so they won. But following that victory, the new nation actually had to figure out how to govern itself. Enter 1788. They implemented the United States Constitution, making it the world's first written constitution, which was a massive milestone in global political history. George Washington, who led the colonial forces, stepped up as the first president. Oh, and it was right around this era, specifically in the 1776 Declaration of Independence, that they officially adopted the name United States of America. Fun fact, that was actually a catchy little rebrand suggested by the writer Thomas Paine. Section 3, expansion and civil war. A nation divided. The newly formed United States was totally ready to scale up. And get a load of this number, $15 million. After independence, the most massive leap in expansion happened in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase. The US bought a massive territory from France for just 15 million bucks. We're talking like 3 cents an acre. That is literally less than what a modern penthouse in New York City costs today, and it tripled the size of the country overnight. Later on, after defeating Mexico in 1845, America pushed those borders even further westward. But as the country exploded in size on the map, it was fracturing deeply on the inside. Much of the nation's early labor force relied on enslaved people brought over from Africa, a brutal practice that was initially introduced during British rule. By the mid-1800s, this created a massive, unresolvable divide. You had the northern states who were strongly opposed to the practice of slavery, and then you had the southern states who heavily supported it. Their entire economy was propped up by cotton farming, which generated enormous profits entirely through the use of forced enslaved labor. That extreme moral and economic fracture simply couldn't hold. It culminated in the American Civil War, raging from 1861 to 1865, just a brutal, bloody conflict between the North and the South. Ultimately, the war ended in 1865, and slavery was officially abolished. However, that victory came at an incredibly massive cost, including the tragic assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, who had been a fierce opponent of slavery. Now, why this history matters so much today is that ending the Civil War didn't instantly heal the country. The sources highlight that these historical, racial divisions, rooted deeply in the legacy of slavery, continue to deeply impact modern American society. The struggle for true equality between white and black Americans persisted long after abolition. The echoes of these early systemic divisions are still highly visible today, serving as the direct historical foundation for modern civil rights movements like Black Lives Matter. Section 4. Rise of the Superpower. Global Dominance. So how on earth does a country go from a violently divided nation to the wealthiest and most militarily powerful country on the planet? Let's look at the 20th century. It wasn't just one thing, it was this perfect storm of strategic choices and sheer geographic luck. Think about it. America hit the geopolitical jackpot. It is completely isolated by 2 massive oceans, and it's bordered by relatively weak neighboring countries, making a direct mainland attack just incredibly difficult. Combine that safety with an immense, roaring economic engine, and the US eventually built such economic dominance that global trade started running primarily on US dollars, handing them completely unparalleled financial leverage over the rest of the world. And they paired that geographic moat with some highly intentional, aggressive foreign policy. While Europe was completely decimated by the First World War, the US took very little damage and actually played a key role in ending it. Then in World War II, after the shock of Pearl Harbor, America really showcased its immense military might. But the real genius was their post-war strategy. By using the threat of the Soviet Union, they spearheaded massive military alliances like NATO. At the same time, they helped establish global financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. Through these organizations and a highly interventionist foreign policy, America was able to indirectly influence global affairs and completely solidify its superpower status. Section 5. Current global challenges. The new era. But history never just sits still. We're entering a new era. Having traced this journey all the way from Columbus to the Cold War, we need to look at modern geopolitics today. For decades, the United States has sat comfortably as the established global superpower, maintaining its position through a powerful military and interventionist policies. But as the source material points out, that long-held status quo is actively being challenged. We are seeing the rapid rise of China as a massive economic and military force. This friction between the established power and the emerging challenger has led to modern conflicts, most notably the ongoing trade wars between the 2 nations. Which brings us to the million-dollar question for this explainer. After Britain's reign, the United States rose to become the world's dominant superpower. Now, with China actively throwing its weight around on the global stage, are we watching another massive historical shift play out? Can China actually emerge as the world's next superpower, or will America's geographic and economic moats keep it at the top? Based on the 500 years of timeline history we just unpacked, it is absolutely a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the history that shapes our world.